Hey Ryan, how do I get project-based learning started at my school? I've gotten some form of this question nearly every day for the last decade from engaged educators just like you. So at Magnify Learning, we've created a free download to get you started. Whether you're a superintendent, principal, coach, or teacher, go to whatispbl.com to get started on your project-based learning journey today. Are you ready to bring project-based learning to your school? The PBL Simplified podcast will help equip you for your PBL journey with weekly need-to-knows, engaging interviews, PBL showcases from facilitators in the classroom, and PBL leadership episodes to move you towards a successful implementation of PBL. Because every learner deserves to be a part of an inspiring story, and we see daily that project-based learning helps make this happen. If you want me to answer your PBL need-to-know on the podcast, visit whatispbl.com and click on Ask Ryan to submit your question.
Welcome to the PBL Simplified podcast, where you can tune in and learn all about project-based learning. I'm Ryan. I'm your host. This month, though, we are looking at what's that book inside of you? How do we get that thing published so that it can get out there and bless the world? So we've been talking about books all month. So this episode is no different. We've got a need to know around writing a book. We also have a guest today. Andrew Larson is a full-time PBL facilitator at the secondary level, and he's written his book, and it is ready to be published. So we're going to get his process and his thoughts on how you make this happen when you're a full-time teacher or a full-time administrator. Where do you find the time? Where are the processes at? And you're going to hear right from Andrew and get to follow him and his process. Before we get into the interview with Andrew, though, I want to hit this need to know. And it's a broad need to know that I get often, whether I'm speaking or talking about the book, is how do you get this book written? Everybody has a book inside of them. I firmly believe that, but not a whole lot of them actually get out and get published. It's like 1%. So I think the first step is to take the ambiguity out of, I want to write a book. If you say I want to write a book, that's maybe a starting thought, but it's not concrete enough to actually do. So spend some time, just sit at an empty desk with no other agenda for 30 minutes and write that down. I want to write a book. And then I want to write a book about what? What's the subject? Maybe it's the title. Maybe you've got a special niche like project-based learning or SEL, differentiated instruction, whatever your niche is, and then start to outline the chapters that could be there. What are the main talking points that you would want to hit and share with others? Once you have those, now you actually don't need to start writing right away. You can start collecting ideas, though, and now you have a place to put those ideas. You can put them into different chapters. Maybe it fits over here or over here. You're collecting illustrations as you're going through your school day. So you have an interaction with a learner, and you think, whoa, that would be perfect for chapter 9. And you want to make sure you record that as well as you can right into a Google Drive. So I have a Google Drive folder that's set up, and it's just called illustrations. And then within illustrations, there's a folder. One is like power of passion. One is direction. One's focus. And as I come up with different stories throughout my day, I catalog those. Because if you think you'll remember them when you get to the writing process, you just won't. One of my writing mentors, Ken Davis, shares this story where he's a prolific speaker and writer. And so he's the one that actually taught me to have this illustration folder. And he woke up in the middle of the night. And of course, he's got a pad right there to write things down. He had this great dream. So this is going to be a perfect example. So he writes it down, goes back to sleep, wakes up the next day, looks at his pad, and it says chicken. And he has no idea what chicken means. He can't remember it. He just remembers he had this great dream that would have been a perfect illustration. So that's always his reminder that when you write down these illustrations, put the detail down. Take the time right now to put the detail into these illustrations, and then you can come back to them when you're actually in the writing process, and you'll know exactly where they go. So the first step in writing your book is to say, what's your book really about? And you know this answer, but you need to take some of the dauntingness of, I'm going to write a book out of the picture. So, find a loose title, a subject, Find yourself 10 to 12 chapters, put some titles on those, and start to collect illustrations so then when you do sit down to write, the content just flows. Because you're going to hear in Andrew's interview today that he's got a place where he just starts to flow. The words flow every day, and he's not editing those words necessarily this first time, but he's just writing and writing and writing. And that comes from knowing your illustrations, sharing those illustrations with others so that you're starting to write your book as you're going throughout your day. The other piece that I want you to try to solidify in your brain as you go to write your book and share it with the world is the very first thing you need to understand is that, yes, you should write your book. Are there other books out there on your topic? Yes. Should you still write your book? Yes. You'll bring a unique perspective that someone else is going to connect with, and it will help others out there in the classroom world or the school world. So we do need to get your book out there. Yes, it's worthy of writing. Yes, we should be sharing it with the world. If you've got those two things, you're really ready to start. There's not a whole lot of other complicated steps to it. And you just decide that you have a book to share, you're an author, start to outline it, and then fill it in. Now, there's going to be more to it, yes, but those are the first steps. And as you hear this interview with Andrew Larson, I really think that you're going to hear the heart of the author, who's also a full-time teacher who loves education. Andrew's been a New Tech Network trainer. He trains for Magnify Learning. He's been doing project-based learning for a decade and has much to share in this interview. I think you'll really enjoy it. Hey, PBL Simplified audience. Really excited today. We've got Andrew Larson on the podcast today, Project Based Learning Facilitator. He's at a Magnify Learning demonstration site. Andrew's been at the beginning of the work and really helped form a lot of this work. So excited to have him on the podcast. He's a good thinker. And since this is a series on book writing, he's got a book coming out. So Andrew, thanks for being on the podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
We're going to start off. We're going to dive into your book because I want to hear your process and your thoughts there. But before we get into that, why PBL for you? Why project-based learning for you as a facilitator?
Yeah, so I was in a traditional setting for 10 years before I made a switch, and that was mostly straight biology. That's what I was doing all day, every day. And I liked my work. It was a good job. It was a good school. But somewhere in year 7 or 8, I just started to get a bit of an itch. Things were starting to feel pretty routine, pretty predictable. And although this isn't implicit to PBL, I felt very isolated. I felt compartmentalized in my building and department. And so there was, I knew that I wanted something else. And to be honest, I didn't know at first what it was. And it's kind of funny. I talk about this in the book. Like I had a couple of, it was almost like clockwork. Sometime in February, I'd get a call or an email from Mike Reed, and he would be asking me, hey, do you ever think about the alternative school? Or, at one point we even had a conversation about starting a farm school. And so both of us were kind of in the same place. We just knew we were looking for a new adventure. And then I think 2008, it was announced at a faculty meeting that our district was going to open this project-based school. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was like, I'm doing that. I want that. And like so many people, I said, I do projects all the time. I already do PBL. And of course I didn't, I did something much more akin to traditional projects, really even in the job interview, I couldn't articulate what PBL was, but now that I do, and, really as of 2 or 3 years in, I just knew that I wanted a more authentic outlet for the content and to do exciting things and kind of have the freedom to just try stuff and get messy and every once in a while have a breakthrough that was really exciting. So I didn't feel like I was getting that, where I was. So that's kind of how it started. And I mean, I haven't looked back, and I will never go back.
Yeah, that's part of your story that I really appreciate, is being a great traditional teacher, but then being like, man, like project-based learning has unlocked something inside of you. Like we've had those conversations. And
Yeah.
I love the phrase you just used, which is why I'm excited about your book coming out, an authentic outlet for the content. Because you love your content, right? Like you love biology, right? You love your content, but it needs an authentic outlook, right? Like it needs a place to really go and be applied in the real world.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. One of the tougher topics for project-based learning is genetics. In biology, that is genetics, okay. and we're just wrapping up a project this week, which is, I mean, it's kind of one of those, you slap yourself in the forehead. It's like, why didn't I think of this sooner? So we're doing a twin study. So, like in terms of understanding the difference between, nature and nurture, the influence of genes and environment, like that's how it's done. That's how human geneticists do it. So we just interviewed, something like, I don't know, 13 sets of twins or something like that. So, we're going to unpack all that data here in the rest of the week. I'm looking forward to it.
Right. I love the real world data, right? Like this work's happening in the real world. Let's figure out where it is. And that's where we drive the content and let the learners work through that.
Yep.
So let's dive into your book, because that's what this month is about. As far as our podcast, we're talking about writing books. So you as a teacher in the classroom have had a lot of these thoughts and these rumblings. Like, what's the title of your book? First off, kind of what's it about? And then bring us into like how you even started thinking about writing a book.
The tentative title is Life's a Project, the 6 A's of project-based learning. And I Googled it. I don't think the title is taken. But yeah, Life's a Project.
It should be, we should have trademark status right now, right? Because this will be public. And then,
right.
I love the title. I knew your subtitle. I knew it was going to be about the 6 A's, but I love your title.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I do with each chapter, and I think you might have previewed one of them, but, kind of like transferring some of the PBL lingo to my outside of class experience, still a lot of stuff in the outdoors. And so that's kind of a thread throughout the introductions of the chapters, which is fun. It's fun to think about what we do in the classroom and how it plays out in terms of real, the doing of real things.
So you're gonna write about the 6 A's.
Yeah.
And we'll link some show notes to some 6 A's content. But yeah, I love that you're, as an expert facilitator, you're going to wrap your experiences and your take around the 6 A's to help people, give them an on-ramp to the 6 A's.
Right.
Bring us back to your writing process. Like, how do you, as a full-time teacher, like what does a writing process look like for you to bring your book to life?
Yeah. So, and my book has languished. I've started it 3 years ago, and I would write in fits, and, mainly in the summer or over winter break. Whenever we had a break, I would try to knock out, a few thousand words. And, I don't know, something, I was feeling frustrated, obviously, with that process. And just this year, I've just committed to it, So my current process is I wake up at 4:15 in the morning, and I write for 1 hour, 5:30 to 6:30, and then get up and go to school. And so I've been able to do that with good consistency, and to the point where I've said everything that I needed to say, and now I'm going back through and doing some editing and. So yeah, and I guess the other part of my process has been reaching out to colleagues. So we had over the Easter weekend, I had a little extra time and had a couple. I actually had a chat with Adria Steinberg, who is the person who conceived of the 6 A's back in the 90s, and that was great. It was so cool. She is she has been around. She's seen it all. And, so I almost felt like I was obligated to tell her that I was writing this book.
Yeah,
and,
that's right. That's so good.
Yeah. And just kind of run a few ideas by her. And I feel a little bit relieved that, nothing that I said, set her aback or anything like that. So
how did that go? Like, were you nervous for that? She's just like, no, Andrew, this is not what you're writing.
I was nervous. I was starstruck, and I told her that, like the 6 A's have been a guiding principle ever since I started doing PBL, and I didn't know where they came from. I had no idea what the origin was.
That's right.
And, there was a rubric or two out there looking at project quality. And it was, pretty general. And I thought this needs unpacked. As far as having that structure, it was a godsend for me in terms of actually getting the book chunked out, into an outline because it's kind of a natural structure. I mean, and not only are the 6 A's there, if you Google 6 A's rubric, you'll find it. And for each one, there's 3 or so questions. And so I just structured my book in that way, exactly. And me answering those questions based on my experience.
Yeah. And I think that's so strong, Andrew, because, I've seen that rubric. We've used that rubric a lot. We give it to participants, especially in our PBL advanced training. We've now kind of structured around that. But just having that rubric does not suddenly make you a PBL expert, right? So how does your book kind of wrap around the 6 A's to help walk somebody through? Is that what it does? Like, what's your goal here with this book?
I think my goal, and as far as I'm concerned, the goal of the 6 A's just in general has always just been a sort of a litmus test for project designers, to be able to say, yeah, my project checks these boxes. So I would say, it's not as sequential, say, as your book, which deals with the sort of the 6 phase project process. It's not like that so much. And that's one of the things I'm kind of knocking around right now is, do I need to change the sequence of the chapters, to make it more that way? And I'm not sure yet. I'll have to get some feedback, but
maybe this will tune for you a little bit. I like this. So what I think I come across is, sometimes if I look at those 6 A's and I look at a PBL unit that I'm tuning with someone, it might be strong in 3 or 4 of those A's, and there might be maybe a little weaker in two, so we can kind of focus that.
Yeah.
Do you see that coming to light as people are reading this book? Like they might find some chapters they gravitate towards because they need some help there?
Definitely. And one of the things I talk about is, and this is a John Acuff thing, right? Perfection is overrated.
Yeah, that's right. Love it.
Yeah. So, I guess over the course of a year, when I think about a year's worth of projects, I really hope that they all, none of them are going to be perfect. I think some of them will approach proficiency in those 6 A's, but others won't, and give yourself permission to make a sacrifice here and there, one project to the next, and maybe you try to do better next time in an area where it was a little less authentic this time for students, but it was super engaging. A lot of active learning was going on, but maybe it was a simulation. We just did a mock trial project, which was immensely engaging. Kids loved it. The setting was authentic because we were in a courtroom. But, for me, I kind of want to balance that out. I want to make sure the next time, and it's kind of funny. One of the things that I've been visualizing is one of those sort of like star diagrams where, you can maybe put in some data and it'll pull in different directions. So the points of the star would be the 6 A's. And, if you're doing well in one area, then it kind of stretches out this way. And maybe it's a little flatter on this side. I mean, I don't know if you can visualize that, but
no, I like it. Well, yeah, but it brings to light the idea that, your PBL unit's not going to be perfect in all the 6As. And so that's not even the goal, because then you'll never launch your PBL unit, right? And
Right.
we both love John Acuff's work, like Finish, right? That helps you get your book done, right? Like we're not searching for perfection, because that just causes you to procrastinate. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I love your book coming out, because whether you're a PBL beginner, or if you're advanced, or maybe if you're PBL certified, wherever you're at on the spectrum, I really think people are going to be able to pull some of your insights out of the 6As and apply it to a PBL unit right away. And I just see it as a way to give people on-ramps to the 6As, which is really bringing about quality PBL.
Yeah, I thank you. I mean, I believe that there will be a lot. There's nitty-gritty detail about project process, and there's lots of examples of things done well and poorly, and so yeah, I think everybody's going to be able to draw from it.
Yeah, I think so. I have no doubt. So your writing process, we don't find time, we make time, right? So you made time early morning, or prime time, family time, and then made that consistent, right? Just made that a discipline. Yep. So we've got listeners out there, both teachers and principals, that we know they have a book in them. Mm-hmm. What are one or two kind of practical tips that you can give them to start their book, like coming to formation? How do they start this writing process for them?
Everybody has a story, right? And so I think that journaling is one of those things. And I haven't been a good journaler forever, but having an archive of what I've done each day has proven really insightful for me. So I think everybody's got a story to tell, because we each live in a parallel universe, and we see things from our own point of view. And I think that anybody that has stuck with something for some appreciable amount of time, something that was uncertain to work, and they've found some success, or at least they've seen enough potential to lend their insight, I think should give it a go. As far as, the nuts and bolts of it, I mean, I think we teach writing in our classes, and, it's all about having some outline to work from, not unlike with projects. Sometimes there's an existing structure that you can build a great project from. And certainly it was my experience that the 6As was my great structure. And if you can draw upon an existing structure, then it might just work. And it's you lending your unique perspective on it. So it's not like you're, taking credit for something that's not yours. It's really just all of us building on each other's thinking.
Right. And your goal wasn't to rewrite the 6As, right? It's to put your spin from your experience to the 6As and allow that to help people. And again, I'm 100% certain that it's going to, because I've seen you do that as you facilitate or mentor, other facilitators. So capturing, if you're in the classroom, capturing some of those illustrations, right? Good days, bad days.
Yeah.
Probably same thing for principals, right? What's working, what's not working, just capture those stories. Does that seem like great advice to give?
Yeah. And like, I've traditionally not been a very good historian. Journaling has helped a lot. And I've always wanted to try to write a book which basically constituted 180 days worth of school, so the structure is there, and just somebody else can go ahead and give that a go. Why not? I mean, because your 180 days are going to be different than mine. So, but yeah, for those of us who aren't great at capturing, I think getting into the habit of capturing and archiving is certainly important.
I'm a firm believer everybody has a book in them, and there's somebody that can learn from it. So one logistical question, and then I'm going to ask you how we can connect to you. So, what did you write your book in? Did you have a program or a software? What did you use?
Google Docs is what I'm writing on. And it's, back in the old days when we have to worry about a floppy disk getting corrupted, or thank goodness those are done. I don't write on my phone, but some people do. Some people, Michael McDowell told me he does most of his writing of his book on a phone. And that kind of blows my mind. I could never do that, but any kind of cloud-based deal is It's amazing.
Right. I like that answer because it's really just kind of, I think, demystifying the process, right? Like, there's no secret to it, but there needs to be time where you can create words. So time to create words, and you need to probably hit 40 to 60,000 words. Did you look at that type of a word count for your book, or what did you look at? What was your goal?
I think I'm at about 65,000. I find that I can write about 1,000 words in one sitting without much trouble. On a good day, I can hit 1,400. And even if I only clear 600 for a day, I don't consider that a loss at all. It's just, that's the progress for today. And so who knows? I don't know how long a book. I think I asked you at one point, and I think you probably told me somewhere north of 50,000. But I felt like I wrote until I didn't have anything left to say. And that's where it kind of shook out at about 65,000.
Yeah, I love it. So just consistent words every day and a book comes out. So how can we follow you on your journey, Andrew, as we go to publishing? We're going to want this to come out. What can we put in the show notes, and how can people connect you to follow you on this journey?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I am at Andrew M, as in Michael Larson, Andrew M Larson. And that's probably the main way. I do some blogging for Magnify Learning. So I think, there's a whole lot of reads, on the Magnify site, which are worth, I'm not just mine. There's a lot of good reads from a lot of folks. Yeah, I'd say that is how.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll connect those. And you do have some great blogs on there. Andrew, thank you for coming on and sharing your writing process. We're excited to see this published.
Thank you, Ryan. It was fun.
All right, PBL Simplified listeners, you have a book inside of you, and it's time to get it published. So you just heard a great story from a full-time teacher teaching high school biology using project-based learning, and he got it done. So you can do that too. And as you do, it'll be another way that we can engage learners, tackle boredom, and transform your classrooms.